Welcome. I bid you welcome to my music corner of the world. My name is Johnny Metal, the Metal Dad, John Klaus, or whatever you want to call me. This time, we are doing a little bit of a spotlight on two of the members of the North and South Rock and Metal Connection, the Brothers Carson. We got Ben rolling the tide, and we got Jason, who's rocking the Patty's what's that? Patty's old. What's that?
Patty's Irish whiskey.
Irish whiskey. And
Patty's Irish
now,
whiskey.
now this apparently was not totally planned. Y'all stand up and show your shirts off. They said they didn't plan this. They're brothers. So
no mercy.
So no mercy. In this solo spotlight with these guys, I'm gonna let them talk about an album that I know Jason especially loves very deeply. And there was a post that they've talked about where they got to see this particular band in concert. So with that said, Jason, I'm going to throw it to you so you can tell us what the album is and tell us who we're paying tribute tonight.
Well, tonight is going to be a reflection on the life and career of one of my Mount Rushmore guitar players, and that is the one and only Gary Rossington. We're going to be talking about the album One More from the Road, which was recorded live in 1976 at the Fox Theater in Atlanta. That was a very pivotal album in my life, and Gary was a very pivotal guitar player in my life as well, because when I first started wanting to play, I got the bug to play, and this is going to sound crazy, but it's the truth. I was watching the music video for November Rain by Guns N' Roses, and it's the part where Slash climbs up on top of the piano to cut the amazing solo at the end. That was what got me wanting to play the guitar. I wanted to be Slash. Well, I started playing, and I realized really quickly that I cannot be Slash. Slash likes to play way faster than I'm capable of playing. I discovered that I was a slow hand, which, there's nothing wrong with that. To each his own. Everybody, it's the differences that make the music great, right? Well, I had a cousin who was pretty heavy into Skynyrd, and he introduced me to them. I mean, growing up in Alabama, of course, I've heard of Lynyrd Skynyrd, Freebird, Sweet Home Alabama, all of that. But after I had started learning to play, I started listening to him with a different ear, and I gravitated toward Gary's playing because Alan was the style and the flash. There he is. There's my boy right there with the Les Paul. He was so good. But Alan was the style and the flash. Ed was the technique guy, which later became Steve was the technique guy, because if you don't believe Steve Gaines is capable of technique, just listen to the Street Survivors album and listen to the song I Know a Little. That's some unbelievable guitar playing in that song. But Gary
no distortion at all.
Yes, but Gary was the soul. He was the heart and the soul in his sound. And I gravitated towards that because I could do that. And I got that because I've never been one to be able to really express my thoughts and feelings very well through words or even writing songs. I've tried to write songs a million times, but I can't get what's in my head to come through my arm, through the pencil, onto the paper. But I can do it on a guitar. And Gary was much the same way. He could express himself on a guitar. I believe there's a quote from one of his interviews where he said, I if I don't know how to say it, if I had my guitar, I could play it for you, to explain his thought. But I've always gravitated towards Gary's playing, and this live album, which was one of the few remaining live samplings of the band at the height of its power, because you had Ronnie, you had Gary, you had Alan, you had Steve, you had Artemis on the drums, you had Billy on the piano, and it's all right there in this amazing live album. And I spent countless hours listening to it, and even more hours learning how to play it. I couldn't play all of the songs on it. I could play most of them. I couldn't play all of Gary's parts, but I could play most of them. I still, even to this day, still cannot play Gary's solo to "Call Me the Breeze." I don't know how he did it, what kind of trickery he was pulling, but he did something amazing there. But his guitar work was such an influence on my playing and my personal style. Very, very melodic, very soulful. Don't try to play a whole lot of notes. Just grab hold of one note and bend it and shake it and make it scream for mercy. That to me is more soulful than being able to play a whole lot of notes in the same span. And that's just I've taken that to heart with my playing style. And Ben, why don't you talk for a little bit now? I feel like I said too much.
Well, naturally, being your younger brother and being 5 years younger than you, what you were into is what I was into at that time. I was hanging on to your coattails because, you'd drive me around and all that, and kind enough to let me hang out with you. So I spent a lot of time listening to Skynyrd. We had, in his old Jeep Cherokee, we had, Second Helping. We had all kinds of Skynyrd records in there, cassette tapes and then CDs and the like. And we just jam out all the time. And Gary was he was an incredibly gifted and rare type of guitar player, because he kind of had like a Jimmy Page vibe about him. He was real quiet. They said he'd kill a lady with his good looks. That's why they called him Prince Charming. That's in the song Needle and the Spoon. That was his nickname. From Ronnie
No,
was Prince
that was
Charming.
That Smell.
That Smell, yeah. And he'd wear, his Les Paul that he affectionately named Bernice, wear Slap Out every night. And he's right. Alan was definitely the speed of the group. And then Ed and Steve were according to the current members of Skynyrd, they were the strat guys. In the band you need a strat player, and they were the strat guys, and that includes a lot of country picking, a lot of chicken picking, and a whole lot of accuracy and skill to do. And then Gary was the slide and the blues player of the band. And that's why the three guitar dynamic worked so incredibly well for Skynyrd. And other bands tried to duplicate it, most of the time it was just a 2 guitar band that tried to duplicate it, and it never worked. Iron Maiden went with a 3 guitar attack in 2000 and have been incredibly successful with it. But it takes 3 very devoted, committed guitar players to make it work, because everybody has to understand their mission and their part to make each song work. And I always look at Gary as kind of the ringleader of the guitar trio in the band. Even in the original lineup, Gary was the leader of the guitars. He'd hit those big bends on Tuesday's Gone. He'd hit the slide on Freebird, the solo on Simple Man. I mean, if you listen, I know that was a co-solo with Alan.
It was doubled.
It was a double lead. But you listen to those 3 songs, Tuesday's Gone, Freebird, and Simple Man, you learn real quick just what a force that Gary Rossington was. And especially on the live album, it was a crazy. It was so I'm gonna go ahead and talk about the album for just a minute. It was recorded at the fabulous Fox Theater in Atlanta, Georgia, on the dates of July 7th, 8th, and 9th of 1976, a year and 4 months before the tragic plane crash that would cost us some key members of the band. And yeah, the deluxe album right there, like Metal Dad was just holding up, has a ton of alternate takes from that 3-night residency. But really just the standard original 13-track album. It's perfect. It's perfect in every way. You get the introduction from Alex Cooley right into I Ain't the One. Just
if there's for MCA. It opens with Working.
Yeah, Working for MCA comes first.
Okay, so on my Apple Music, One More from the Road, it is
it's because on the Apple Music,
introduction is Working for MCA.
Yeah, the introduction just flows right into it. Yeah, it's not a separate track.
Okay, so you got Working for MCA right into I Ain't the One. Mr. Saturday Night Special. Just to hear how good of a drummer Artemis Pyle was, listen to that song done live. It's crazy. He does like this huge drum roll for forever, it seems like. It's killer. Any key tracks you want to talk about, bro?
Well, some of my personal favorites, and going back to what you was talking about, the alternate takes. One of my favorites is the alternate take of Working for MCA, where they start off and they're dragging, and you hear Artemis hitting his sticks like, "Come on, guys, speed it up!" And they finally kick into high gear and get with the tempo, and then the song progresses. But I mean, it starts off, you hit that big B chord that slides down, 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 and it's going really slow, and you just hear Artemis all of a sudden tell him to speed up. Come on.
That's a rare occurrence in the world of Skinner. They were pretty on point every night.
Well, I imagine they probably got to hitting the bottle a little bit the night before. I mean, this is Skinner we're talking about here.
At 70 Skinner, they like to partake.
Yes, they like to partake. But as far as like just stand out, I mean, the whole album is a standout track. I mean, that's a given. But for me, the big standouts for me were Simple Man, because it's really, Simple Man is one of those oddities, because for some unknown reason they decided to, when they recorded that song for the Pronounced album, they decided to record it a half step down.
I think Ronnie was having trouble at the time hitting and be a simple, the chorus line where he gets really up there.
But I mean, it's obvious from listening to him live, he had no issues. I mean, he nailed it in standard tuning. And of course, you know, we all know and love the story of Simple Man, how the producer said, "You will not record this song, put it on this album as long as I'm
Made him go sit in the parking lot."
And Ronnie took him outside and put him in his car and said, "When we're done, we'll come get you." And then it becomes one of their biggest, most important songs.
To this day, that song still carries so much weight.
It really does. I mean, it's a beautiful song with a really emotional message. I mean, just the other day, I was scrolling YouTube watching reaction videos to Simple Man, and
the amount of people that cry is funny.
Yeah, about 90% of them cry because it just hits so hard. But another to another standout for me was actually "Give Me Back My Bullets," because I don't know why, but for some reason it seemed to hit harder live than it did on the studio. The studio version of it just sounded way too polished. You know, to me, they were always so much better of a live band than they were studio, because the studio just seemed to polish it and make it all pretty, and it wasn't supposed to be pretty. They sounded better raw and nasty. And
one of the key differences there was the extra guitar player that was there for the live cut of it, as opposed to the studio cut, which was missing that single coil Strat sound. But they also sped it up a little bit, and Artemis made a huge difference he like completely rewrote the drum part to that song for the live tape.
It hit so much harder. I mean, it was like, I mean, it was almost like and it was almost early heavy metal. Yeah. It hit so hard live. And Gary's playing on it was just mean and nasty. And then you go straight out of that into beautiful blues playing by him on Tuesday's Gone.
Mm-hmm. Crazy good.
And if the fans watching this video have never heard Tuesday's Gone live with this era of the band, do yourself a favor and listen to it. I mean, Ronnie sings his bloody heart out. The backup singers are just right in there tooth and nail with him. Gary's playing just sounds like somebody ripping their heart out because it's so emotional.
Yeah, and then on the studio track of that, there's some kind of weird. The intro of that is some kind of weird
like a
Mellotron.
Some kind of organ thing, and Gary does it on a guitar on there.
It sounds a million times better.
Yeah, and then you add all of that up together and throw a little bluesy harmonica on top of it. It just knocks it out of the park. I mean, the harmonica is really what done it for me. I mean, the whole song was a masterpiece, but then that harmonica just it added a whole nother element of bluesiness to it that just made it so beautiful. And then we get into the meat of it right here with
play some old honk.
Yeah, Give Me 3 Steps and Call Me the Breeze, which are some of those are some of Gary's, I would say, some of his best playing, because it was really intelligent playing, but at the same time, it was just like, let's just do it and see what happens. It was kind of haphazard, but still really, really well formulated. And after that, that's when we get to see Steve really, really shine in T for Texas. Because Steve blew him away. That, that, I don't know if you're aware, John, but when Steve's sister Cassie finally got the band to agree to let Steve have a tryout on stage, it was playing T for Texas, and he wowed Gary and Alan so much that as soon as the concert was over and they walked backstage, they said, "Call your other band, tell them you're done. You're going with us tonight."
Yep.
Because I mean, that's how good Steve was. And I mean, we talk about all of the guitar players that we lost way too early. Your Hendrixes, your Hendrix, your Rhodes, all of those guys. Steve Gaines was one of those guys as well, because
Yes, he was
so imaginative, and his work ethic was so strong that he forced Gary and Alan, who had become kind of lackadaisical because, hey, we're Leonard Skinner. He forced them to get better. And that's why the Street Survivors album was such a strong record. Because a lot of it was due to Steve.
That's the only material we have of Steve, right? That's it.
I think there's some like home video stuff of his band that he was in before Skinner, but I'm not sure. I really don't know. I don't know if they ever recorded anything.
I know he could have gone on to be a real powerhouse, especially because if y'all remember his song that he co-sang with Ronnie, he sang lead vocals on. Gosh, the name of it escapes me. You got that right. You got that right.
Yeah.
Dude could sing really good.
Yeah.
And what was the name of the song on Street Survivors that he wrote? Now I know a little. It's the other one. Is it One in the Sun or something like that?
I think so.
Hang on, I can tell you. I'm trying to look it up on. Let's see. Ain't No Good Life. Ain't No Good Life was a song he solo wrote. But you got that right. I Never Dreamed or co-write.
That's the I Never Dreamed.
Okay.
I Never Dreamed.
Okay.
Yes. That was such a good song. It was I mean, it was a sound quite unlike any that Skinner had done before, but it almost had a pop feel to it, but it was still Skinner. I mean, it still had the meat and potatoes of Skinner, but it had a very pop feel. But of course, the what always attracted me about Skinner, besides the guitar playing, because I'm a guitar player, was Ronnie's ability to write such captivating lyrics. I mean,
wonderful stories.
He never wrote them down. He just said them.
Yeah. I mean, if it ain't worth remembering, it ain't worth singing.
Yeah.
And that I mean, that's a
one of those songs that has always stuck out to me, and I wish I would have loved to have heard it done live. Was off the Second Helping album. Was a song called "Was I Right or Wrong." It's about going, a young man going off to pursue his dream in the music industry after being told he can't do it, and he's going to come home to rub it in their face, but everybody's dead. So
Yeah.
it's a powerful song with a great message to it. And Gary and Alan and Ed do a tremendous job all trading licks on that one.
Yes.
Hmm.
They all take turns soloing, and you can tell who does what, and it sounds amazing.
Yeah.
That's always been my favorite aspect of their three guitar attack was each guy, you could recognize them by their style, but you could also recognize them by their sound.
Mm-hmm.
And as much as I love Iron Maiden, and y'all know I really do, it's hard to tell the difference between Adrian and Dave.
Yeah.
Because their styles are so similar and their sounds are so similar. And unless you really know, then how do you know? But with Skinner, you always knew that, hey, this is Gary, this is Alan, and this is Ed or Steve. I mean, because their sounds were so drastically different in tonality. And I wish more bands. I'm not saying clone Skinner or even try to replicate it, but just take some clues from them. Take a couple of hints. Really strong songwriting. With your music, really strong lyrics that tell a story, and you know, and for your guitar players, don't get in each other's way. Do what the song dictates. If the song dictates a slow bluesy solo, let the bluesy guy play it. Don't try to force a shred solo over it. Just it's not rocket science. And but I guess a lot of your modern players don't want to do that because they'll be seen as Southern sounding. And there's nothing wrong with sounding Southern. If I mean, Skinner, I mean, there's a reason why Lars Ulrich loves them, why Dave Grohl loves them, why New Jersey's own Zach Wild loves them. I mean, they were an amazing band.
Yep. That the core of it was taken far too soon from us.
Yes.
And a lot of the guys from the band was never really the same. It took them a long time to recover from the injuries of that.
It really did. And
thank God Charlie Daniels put them back together.
Yeah, I mean, not to take anything away from New Skinner. I mean, they definitely had their moments. They really did. The last Rebel album was a benchmark for New Skinner. I mean, it was great. But
God and Guns was a good one that put them back on the map.
Yeah, God and Guns was a good one. What was the one that the was the album Vicious Cycle?
Yes.
That tour was?
Yeah,
that was a good record. But I mean, it at its core, it wasn't the same because you didn't have that edge that Ronnie brought. I mean, Ronnie was the core of the band. We might as well say it. I mean, without him, it wasn't Skinner.
Yeah.
But Johnny didn't
have that.
Yeah. The guy that Ronnie always ran to though was Gary. Anytime Ronnie had an idea, a melody, a vocal line, anything, he would run straight to Gary to work it out.
Yeah.
So by that aspect, I've always kind of looked at them as the co-leaders, but obviously even Gary would have said it was Ronnie's band, and even back in the early 80s, after they did the Rossington Collins band experiment, which this is a tremendous powerhouse of a record right here.
The first record was great. The second record, not so much, but the first record was amazing.
But Gary said even in the 80s that he would do Skinner, but it was always sort of going to be like a tribute band from here on out.
Yeah,
He knew that back then.
Yeah.
He always mandated that the new Skinner was a tribute band.
Yeah, and with now with Gary gone, I mean, essentially the only guy that was a member of the band at one point, and it's still touring with him now, is Ricky Medlock. Ricky Medlock, he was on like the first album or one of the.
He was a demo guy, I believe.
Yeah, he's a demo guy.
He demoed the Muscle Shoals sessions.
Right.
So he wasn't involved in the recording of the first record.
No. I mean, everybody else is gone except for Artemis Pyle. And it doesn't seem like Artemis is going to get back together with any. Well,
there's some bad blood there.
There's bad blood there. So obviously Artemis is going to do his own thing, but I think he's got his issues too. But God bless them that they've been keeping the spirit, or they've been at least keeping the music alive as best they can. It's just the heart and the spirit have been long gone.
Yeah. Although there are times when that heart and soul does come out, because the night that Ben and I saw them in Atlanta, they essentially replayed the One More from the Road album live.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it started straight off working for MCA, straight on through to Freebird. I mean, we essentially got to see One More from the Road live in 2001.
That's cool.
And that night, the fire was there because those guys, they brought it.
There were two songs, I believe, that were done that night, and I'm trying to look them up to make sure I get the names right.
They were off the Vicious Cycle record.
They were. One of them was Bernice. He did a song called didn't he do a song called Bernice?
Yes.
Yeah, and
as try as I might, I found the concert that we went to, because the dates had been changed, but I could not find a set list.
But it was a great concert, a night I'll remember forever. And I've seen footage. I cannot for the life of me remember if they did it that night or not. I think they might have, where when they do Traveling Man, they'll play video footage of Ronnie singing one verse and then Johnny will sing the second verse.
That's
pretty cool.
And if I remember correctly, they had, because of Traveling Man, because of the way it opens up, they had during that song, they had kind of a tribute to Leon, because, we saw him just right after Leon had died.
Yeah.
Which, for all the bass players out there, I know bass is a
staple,
but bass is an intricate instrument. I get that. I am not a bass player, and I will never ever claim to be. But Leon, the way he approached playing bass and his bass lines were so unusual. And I mean, case in point, just listen to a standalone bass track of the song Simple Man. It's not a typical bass line at all. It's all over the place, but it fit and it worked. I believe Ed King actually said that Leon Wilkinson played the bass like a lead guitar player would.
I think he was actually kind of a guitar player to begin with, and he just moved to bass. But you're right, he played it more like a guitar than a regular bass.
Yeah,
but
because Ed was their first bass player, and Ronnie hated Ed on bass.
Yeah, that's a hilarious story. Ronnie telling Ed,
He said,
"You
"You're
are
the worst."
absolutely the absolute worst bass player I've ever played with, and as of right now, you are fired, but you're rehired as our third guitar player."
Yeah. So the song Bernice is off of the 20 album.
Okay.
And we did not see them on the Vicious Cycle tour. We saw them on the Edge of Forever tour that came out in '99, because
Yeah.
Vicious Cycle came out in 2003.
Right. Right.
That's
Vicious Cycle. No, no, okay. I'm thinking the live video live from Steeltown, that was off the 20 tour, wasn't it?
that was off of the 20 tour. Yes.
Yeah, that's right. We saw him on the Edge of Forever or whatever it was. Yeah.
All right, so back to our set list of 1976, so we can wrap this on up here.
We've gotten into T for Texas.
T for Texas. One that definitely stuck out to me, and it's slight changes between studio performances and live performances can make all the difference in the world. Case in point, listen to Joe Bonamassa's album version of his song Mountain Time as compared to his Royal Albert Hall 2009 version of Mountain Time. Night and day, two totally different songs. They did a song, Whiskey Rock-a-Roller, on this live cut. They made one slight change to the intro of it to where when the piano and drums hit, there's a call and response that on the studio version was done with the electric guitar. It goes da 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 da. They replaced that with Billy Powell's piano playing on the live version, One More from the Road, made the song completely have a teetotal different sound, meaning, direction, and everything. Improved it 100%.
It kind of come across more as a honky tonk song.
It was a honky tonk juke joint boogie song. That's what it was going for in the first place, but kind of missed by that much. And they revamped it and made it better.
Yep. I'll agree with that.
Yes. So let's see. Needle and the Spoon, fantastic version. I love Alan Collins on the wah pedal, just wearing it out with his Explorer. Kills it. Totally kills it. We talked about Giving Back My Bullets and Tuesday's Gone and T for Texas. Sweet Home Alabama. To me, I'm a studio version of that song. It's never quite came off as powerfully live. I've heard many different versions of it done live. It just does not sound as good live as the studio recording did. There was magic in the microphones that night.
The only plus for me on the live cut is that we get Steve at the end.
Yeah.
We get a good strong solo from Steve at the end of it.
Yeah. Gary nailed the middle solo, the first solo. It sounds great, but the intro just doesn't sound quite right. And Ed King has always said there's a secret way to play it that he used that day that made it sound right. I'm not sure what it is, but nobody else makes it sound like Ed King made it sound.
I know the technique you're talking about because I've watched several videos of Ed King showing the proper way to play it.
Yeah.
I know the technique that he insists there. I just can't do it.
Oddly enough, he said the one guy that could do it besides him was the guitar player from Cinderella.
Yeah.
Huge Skinner fanatic. They're a Southern hair metal band. Nails it every time. Is what, according to Ed King, the guitar player from Cinderella knew how to play it right.
Kiefer or LeBar?
I think
Because LeBar was like the main lead player, but then Tom Kiefer, he was like he played some leads, but of course he was the singer too. But so it depends on which guy he was talking about.
I have no idea.
Yeah,
yeah, I don't know. I'd have to go back and watch that interview again.
yeah.
I don't want to
With
tell you a lie, so
yeah, yeah.
um, and then we hit the quintessential Freebird.
Well,
The
before you hit Freebird, I mean, I know this show is a tribute to Gary and all of that, but we would be totally remiss if we did not mention the tour de force that was Alan Collins playing the song Crossroads, because he was a huge Eric Clapton fan.
Yep.
Oh, absolutely.
And I mean, they come out there with the Cream version of Crossroads, and just, I mean, the first time I heard it, I was floored, because I mean, I knew how good a guitar player Alan was, because I've heard all the other stuff, but wow,
Yeah.
I mean, another one who was taken way too soon.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Okay, you can go on to Freebird now. I'll let you have Freebird.
So Freebird, Freebird, the
Freebird.
song. Oh, I've heard the original demo cut of that song, and it sounds absolutely zero anything like what you hear today. Um, there was no piano, even on the pronounced album. There was no piano involved.
Well, they had the organ, but they didn't have
Yeah,
it didn't have the
but
piano parts. Yeah,
yeah, the intro always was like guitar based, and
right.
but you knew something big was going to happen when Ronnie shouted out, "What song is it y'all want to hear?" And Billy sits down and just hits that G chord on the piano, and holy cow,
Yeah,
takes you, I mean, just on a trip immediately. Um, and then Gary does this awesome slide technique where he takes his slide and makes it sound like a little Tweety bird, makes the bird call. Everybody's always been like, how does he do that? It's real simple. If you got your amp up loud enough, you mute your strings and take your slide and just rake it across the bottom string, and it does that. It makes a whistle.
yeah.
And
Dwayne
then
Allman.
his
I think Dwayne Allman come up with that technique.
yeah, and Gary's always going to be remembered for the slide solo, the solo of Freebird. Yeah, the last 6 minutes or so, 8 minutes, whatever it is, that's insane. That's crazy. That's just straight up guys flexing their muscles. But
Pretty much.
that that slide is what people want in Freebird.
Yep.
And on those 3 nights, July 7th, 8th, and 9th of 1976, the two cuts of this song that made it to the deluxe record, he nailed it. He said more with that guitar and that slide than you could write a book about. He like Jason said, he talked with his hands. He put every bit of beautiful emotion that he knew how to muster into those fingers, projected through those speakers, and you felt it. You don't just this version, I've heard Freebird many thousands of times, all sorts of different recordings of it, live cuts. I've seen it done in person one time. But this version, you feel this version and experience this version. You don't just listen to it. You can't, this one's weird. You can't stop it when it gets started. You're going to spend 14 minutes and 26 seconds listening to this every time you turn it on. It's crazy. It's the most beautiful cut of it that you'll ever hear.
And the thing is, when the ballad part ends, and flows into the extended jam at the end, where most people would say, okay, I've had enough, let's turn it off. You can't, because not only are you hearing and feeling Alan and Steve with their amazing lead work, you're actually feeling the crowd. You're feeling the crowd's energy come through the record as well. And you know, that's something you don't feel often. There are a few live albums of not just Skinner, but of other bands that I've listened to. A few live cuts where you can actually feel the crowd as well as the band.
Yeah, I mean it's very easy to see why. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jason, but just a few short months after this album was recorded, fans were booing the Rolling Stones off stage to have Skinner come back out and play more. That was in '77, right?
Yeah, the Nebworth Fair, I believe, was a year after this, because I want to say that concert was in July in England, but
Yeah.
I could be wrong on the timing. But it was after this.
Yeah, they're in England and fans are booing the Rolling Stones off stage.
Yes, I mean
That's pretty
know,
hardcore.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you know, it's a powerhouse band when before the band has even gotten like any kind of really big notoriety, they're opening for the Who on Quadrophenia tour, and every band that has been on that tour opening for them has been booed off the stage within like 5 minutes. And Skinnerd is going out there getting recall. They're getting encores for, you know, before the Who come out. They're getting encores from Who fans, you know. And then there's the story of Pete Townsend having a conversation with the guy backstage while Skinner is on stage, and Pete mid sentence stops, listens, and like, wow, they're really quite good, aren't they? I mean,
that's high praise coming from somebody like Pete Townsend. So.
In a world of '70s, you know, psychedelic rock, experimental rock, and you know, prog and concept albums, these guys hit hard with sweaty, dirty, alcohol-fueled, blue-collar blues rock, and they took over the music world.
Mm-hmm.
They were a meat and potatoes band. They really were. But you know, I'm one of those guys that I don't always want caviar and all of that. Sometimes I just desire some meat and potatoes.
Pork chops and mashed potatoes.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're making me hungry.
But that's all we got, Metal Dad, on the history of Leonard Skinner's One More from the Road album.
That's good. That's great stuff, guys. You know, that's
The world lost Prince Charming, and I know he's in a better place, and I know the band is back together, rocking out hardcore.
Oh yes. Oh yes. Absolutely.
You know, Dwayne was one of his very best friends, and he lost him years and years ago, and they're finally jamming again.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, the only remaining question from the whole thing is what would have happened had the plane crash not happened. How big and how far would they have gone?
That's what I was talking to Metal Dad about earlier today. Was I've always heard rumor and legend has it that Ronnie was artistically looking to change the direction of the band slightly and was wanting to lean more towards outlaw country.
No. He did not want the band to do that. He was going to do that himself, because it had already been penciled in that after the Street Survivors tour, they were going to take a a small break, but they were going to take a break, and he was going to record an album, a solo album with him and Merle Haggard. That's always been the story that I heard. How much honest to God truth there is to it, I cannot say because I've never went in and researched it. But that's always been the rumor that I've heard, was that Ronnie was going to record a kind of like how Dimebag Darrell did with David Allan Coe, that kind of a thing. It was going to be Ronnie Van Zant, Merle Haggard, because Merle was Ronnie's favorite singer.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
And but yeah, that as far as I know, there was never any talk of the band itself changing direction, because I mean, why would you? Street Survivors debuted as one of their best selling records. I mean, it was the band's I don't know how to exactly put it. It was the band finally hitting on all cylinders for a studio record. Going all the way back to Pronounced, because Pronounced was hitting on all cylinders. Then Second Helping was the same, if not better. And then you got Nothing Fancy, which kind of wasn't as good, so to speak. I thought Nothing Fancy was a great record, but the critics said it's Skinner, but it's not as good. And then Gimme Back My Bullets was the sound of a band who had lost their way and was trying to get it back.
right.
Which, personally, to me, Gimme Back My Bullets has my all-time favorite song by Skinner on it, Cry for the Bad Man. And Metal Dad, if you've never heard that song, give it a listen. It's an amazing track.
Yep. I probably need to do a little more of a deep dive with Skinner, because for me, my cousin had this album when I was a teenager. And so I borrowed it from him, and I think I may have dubbed the tape of it. And so this was kind of really the only Skinner I ever really listened to. I've never gone back further.
That album that you're holding in your hands, that's their Thriller. That's their Dark Side of the Moon. That's
it really is.
That's the quintessential album. You don't need a greatest hits album. You need that.
Yeah.
And you're good.
Yeah. And then Street Survivors, when they got Steve into the fold, they had that Pronounced and Second Helping magic again, and it really showed in the finished product of Street Survivors. It's a brilliant album, just all the way around, because Steve brought that breath of fresh air and that renewed energy. And plus, a lot of the guys had gotten clean.
Yeah.
Ronnie, I think Ronnie had quit drinking. I think Gary had quit drinking and stuff for a while, because of the song That Smell is about him. He crashed a brand new Ford Torino into a huge oak tree, because he was strung out on Quaaludes and going way too fast. So,
maybe it's for the best that we don't know what the history of Skinner would have been had the plane not crashed, because who knows, they could have started becoming one of those revolving door bands. And I don't want Skinner to be that. I don't want to think of Skinner as that.
Yeah. I mean, there's always the you play it with all of your favorites. What if Randy hadn't died? What if Jimmy hadn't died? But in the end, I mean, history has played out the way it's meant to, and as much as it breaks our hearts, hey, at least we still got the music. The music will last forever.
We'll always have the music. So I think that's a good note to end this on. So I'm going to raise my bottle of water to Gary.
There's my bottle of water with some passion fruit flavoring in it.
And and Ben's gonna bang away on the drums. So guys, this was awesome. You guys are really showing me your love for Skinner here, and this is really cool. So I'm glad we got to do a little spotlight here with you guys on this, and hopefully we can do something similar like this with you guys again. And
sorry it run a little long, but
no, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. This is good. I want the passion to show through from you guys. So, if for you guys who watch this, we're going to do the same thing with JD. We're going to do the same thing with Roger. They're going to get a little solo spotlight at some point. So we'll delve into their minds a little bit. So, and who knows, maybe I'll turn it to these guys and they can delve into my mind. Ooh, that would be scary. Anyway.
Well, hey, if we did it for you, we'd have to talk about wasps.
Oh gosh. Well, that's my Wasp Wednesday series right there. So that's don't tune into that. I'll give that a cheap plug. So
yeah,
guys, this was awesome. This was awesome getting here.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say my passion is obviously Skinner and Pink Floyd. Those are like my top two.
Yep.
So and we know yours is Wasp. You've got a show dedicated to it.
Yep. And I'll probably bring in some other stuff at some point. But guys, this was awesome. Thank you for doing this with me.
Fun.
This was so. I'm gonna have to do a deep dive into Skinner. I can see it now. So
it's worth it.
At least the Ronnie era. Maybe not so much the later stuff. The stuff that really matters the most. So, but hey, you know what? If for those who watch this, if you like some of the Johnny era, and you got a song or something that you think I should listen to, put them in those comments. Like, share, subscribe. You know all the lingo. Tell me what you think of this.
Ring the bell.
Ring the bells. That's right. Ring some bells. Go listen to some old Skinner. Pay some homage to Gary Rossington, who we just lost recently. And just remember, just a great band that was taken far too fast from us. So for the Brothers Carson, Ben and Jason, I am John Clauser, Johnny Metal, the Metal Dad. This is my music corner. We will catch you soon.
Rest in peace, Gary.
That's right.